So let's talk about Emperor Augustus. You know the guy, founder of the Roman Empire, the adopted son of the divine Julius Caesar, a man who projected this image of perfect Roman nobility. His official story is, well, it's one of the cornerstones of Western history. But what if the whole thing, his whole origin story, was built on a lie? Yeah, that's the big question we're diving into right now. We're basically going to follow a trail of breadcrumbs. Ancient clues, really. Things like political insults, a forgotten childhood nickname, and even the names of places on a map. And all of them suggest the man we know as Augustus wasn't exactly who he claimed to be. Okay, so the official story, the one we all get in history class, it's pretty straightforward. It says Augustus came from a good old respected family from Velletri, a town in Lazio, smack dab in the heart of Roman territory. And look, this story was so important for him. It cemented his image as a true Roman, a worthy successor to Caesar, and, the perfect guy to lead Rome. But, history's never quite that simple, is it? The first crack in that shiny public image, it actually comes from the people who hated him most, his political enemies. We're not going to take their insults as pure fact, of course, but think of them as the first big clue in our investigation. And what's really wild is just how specific this insult was. His rivals, guys like Cassius Parmensian and Mark Antony, they didn't just throw mud. They were surgical about it. They claimed his grandfather on his dad's side wasn't some noble Roman landowner, but a mensarius, a money changer, from a little town called Nerulum. All right, so what's the big deal? A banker, right? How bad could that be? Well, for the Roman elite, a mensarius was basically new money. It wasn't that respectable, old-school wealth that came from owning land. The whole point of the insult was to paint Augustus as a kind of social climber, someone from a kind of grubby, provincial background. And that's just part one of the insult. Part two is all about where he was from. Nerulum wasn't just any old town. It was way down in Lucania, this remote, rugged region in southern Italy. I mean, for the fancy folks in Rome, this was the middle of nowhere, the sticks. So by tying his family to this place, they were saying he wasn't a real Roman deep down. And that's why the slander hit so hard. It felt plausible, like they were airing some dirty laundry that everyone kind of suspected was true anyway. Okay, so the insults give us our first major lead, the region of Lucania. So let's put on our detective hats and see what other evidence we can dig up that points to the same spot. So, clue number one. It's his childhood nickname, Tyrrhenus. Now, the official story claims it was to celebrate his father's military victory near a town called Thurii, but the historian Suetonius, he hints at something way, way more interesting. See, Suetonius flat out says the nickname might have been a nod to where his ancestors came from. And honestly, when you start digging, that theory looks pretty solid. The major city of Thurii was right in that same region, and its symbol, the bull, was all over the local coins in southern Lucania, just like you see here. The name Tyrrhenus wasn't just random. It was basically a huge billboard pointing right back to the exact region his enemies were talking about. All right, on to clue number two, and this one is just genius. It shows you how the slander was more than just a crude attack. It was clever. It's all about a hidden pun, a bit of wordplay, tucked inside a place name. Okay, let's break this down because this is cool. So the town, Nerulum, to a Roman, that would have sounded a lot like the word niger, which, means black in Latin. Now think about that banker, the mensarius. What's he doing all day? He's handling dirty metal coins, which would literally stain his hands black. You see where this is going, right? The insult was this incredible double whammy. Augustus's ancestor was the banker from the black place, the banker with the black hands. It brilliantly turned his origin into a personal stigma. Clue number three might just be the most amazing of all because this one is literally written on the map. Place names are kind of like fossils. They preserve bits of history. And in this one little coastal area of Lucania, they tell an unbelievable story of a deep connection to Augustus's family. I mean, just look at this. A town called Blanda was renamed Blanda Julia. Slapping the imperial family name on a town, that was a massive honor, something usually only done for official Roman colonies. And right nearby, in Buxentum, we find inscriptions showing this special link to the emperor's own household. This isn't just a coincidence. It screams that the imperial family had some deep, personal connection to this tiny corner of Italy. But the real clincher, the smoking gun, might be how this one single place name changes over time. Just follow the thread here. First, it's called Caesariana, for the Caesars. Then it becomes Tower of the Emperor. Centuries later, it's called Divus, from Divus, the title for the deified Augustus himself. And the final name?
Sancta Venere, Saint Venus, a direct link to the goddess Venus, the mythical ancestor of Augustus's family. Think about that. For over a millennium, this one spot on the map keeps a memory of its link to Augustus. The chances of that being random? Almost zero.
So, okay, we've got all this evidence pointing to Lucania. So what do we do about the official version of the story, told by historians like Livy, who is actually a friend of Augustus? Well, this is where it gets really clever. What if he wasn't trying to hide the truth, but to spin it? Take Livy. He makes a really big deal about how the Romans conquered Nerulum way back in 317 BC, and he specifically says it was the first Lucanian town to become Romanized. On the surface, it's just a fact, but underneath, there's a hidden message. By saying this, Livy's doing some masterful PR. He's taking Augustus's provincial backwater hometown and reframing it. It's not some embarrassing origin, it's a symbol of early loyalty to Rome. He's not denying the Lucanian connection. He's polishing it up, making it sound respectable, totally worthy of an emperor. So, after all that, where does this leave us? We followed the slander, the nickname, the coins, the wordplay, the place names, the historical spin. I think it's time for a verdict. Look, there's no signed confession from Augustus saying, yep, you got me, I'm from Lucania. But the circumstantial evidence, it's just overwhelming. All these different clues, all pointing to the same small, remote part of southern Italy. It's an incredibly strong case. It seems almost certain that the first emperor of Rome came from a background he spent his entire political career trying to bury. But you know, this whole thing is about more than just one guy's family tree. This hidden origin story tells us something really important about how Rome actually worked. There's a great way to put it. This region was a place where Rome conquered Italy, and at the same time, from which Italy conquered Rome. It's a perfect example of how the empire was built. It wasn't just old Roman blue bloods. It was built by pulling an ambitious people from the edges and making them the very heart of Rome. And that really leaves us with one final big question. The official story about Augustus was accepted for 2,000 years. The fact that we can now see through it shows that history is never really settled. I mean, think about it. If the most powerful man in the ancient world could successfully rewrite his own origin story, what other huge secrets are just sitting there in our history books, waiting for someone to notice the clues?